What's going on, everyone? My name is Dan Matarese, and today I'm going to be talking about my financial mindset. Now, this is something that's really important to me. It's something that I have talked about on my podcast, D4 in Theory, on the most recent episode, and I really just wanted to sit down and be able to talk to the camera a little bit more because I really like doing that, and I really wanted to just be able to kind of show graphs and all of that kind of stuff. So really can't do that with a podcast. Figured it'd be awesome to be able to do that on YouTube. So first thing that I want to talk about kind of is where I started when I was younger. Growing up, I worked for my dad, I saved a lot of money, and throughout my high school years, I really focused on making sure that my financials were good. When I decided to get a car, it kind of threw my savings for a loop because I decided, hey, I want to be able to buy my own car and not have to worry about having help. And I had a little bit, but I put most of the money into the car. So most of the money that was spent on the car was my own money. After that happened, I pretty much had almost nothing in savings. I really drained most of it. Some money was put into an IRA, but other than that, I didn't have much in savings. I didn't have much in the IRA. I had some money in CDs, and that was about it. So as I got out of high school, I kind of fell off of that whole savings lifestyle. I started really focusing on spending money and going out and hanging out with friends and not worrying about, money in versus money out, and really didn't focus on those kind of things. So it kind of hurt me in the long run, and it's something that I have come to regret. It's something that if I hadn't gone out as much to go out to dinner or to hang out with friends or to spend so much money, we could have done stuff like play soccer or, hang out and not necessarily spend all this money. And I decided that it'd be a good idea to spend money, and that's money that I don't have anymore. So in my early college years, I was spending more money on food, I was spending more money on Amazon, I was, putting money on credit cards, and that was something that I didn't really think about because I was so young. I was naive when it came to money. I really didn't think about, I was making money, but I was also spending as much, if not more, and putting money on credit cards. So I ended up really starting to build up my credit during my college years and even a little bit in my high school years, but more towards when I got into college. And I had money on credit cards. I didn't have much in savings. I didn't have much in my checking account. Basically living paycheck to paycheck, but it was college, so I didn't really have to worry about it. End of my college career, I had this professor who thought that, he had so much money in the stock market. He thought that his money was amazing. His financial success in the stock market was better than anything, and that he was the ideal perfect person when it came to finances. And his class was more of him bragging about the money that he was making rather than, telling us how we could do the same. And I remember that he gave us a couple of pieces of advice, and the thing that I didn't like was he really gave advice that was one of the best pieces of advice that I got and one of the worst pieces of advice that I got. So it really was kind of counterintuitive because, I could be doing something really good for me and something really bad for me, and that would level it out. So the good piece of advice that he gave me was to not invest a lot of money in the stock market. So he told us during that class, invest in the app Robinhood, invest in stock, and just kind of put your money into it, whatever you're comfortable with. If you're comfortable with losing $25, which I was at the time, then throw $25 in, invest in stocks, find out what you did wrong, find out what you did right, and then just go from there. And that was one of the worst pieces of advice that I've ever gotten. And the reason I say that is that if I just do that without any knowledge of the stock market, any knowledge of the companies I'm investing in, and I'm just throwing money into the market, I might get a really good stock, I might get a really bad stock. And that's exactly what happened. I put $25 in, and for the first 2 years that I had money invested in the stock market, I ended up at a loss because one of the stocks that I put money into was negative pretty much the entire time from when I bought it. So it slightly went up and then it dropped and it dropped and it dropped. And I had another really good stock that I've had since that day that I invested, and it has over doubled in price. So it's finally actually made me more successful, but it took a long time to get there. So in that time, I was pretty much in the negative for almost 2 years. Now I've gone into the positive, and I've learned to kind of invest in, multiple different stocks, be able to get dividends, invest in mutual funds, bonds, the whole 9 yards, and to really diversify. But back then I didn't know. So that kind of was really detrimental to my view of investing, and I stopped investing pretty much immediately. I just left the 25 and let it kind of go from there, but I never really invested after that for probably about a year and a half. So basically the bad piece of advice was built in there, which was just put your money into anything and see what happens. Good advice, put what you're comfortable with losing. Bad advice, just throw it in, put it wherever you want and see what happens. If I'd put $1,000 into the stock market, I would have lost, probably a good portion of that. And then the stock that's gone up by, over 100%, it wouldn't have done anything for me, because I would have already lost, $400 or however much it would have been. I don't actually recall how much or what percentage I lost, but that was the advice that I really didn't like. And I actually got a better piece of advice from my mother, who told me, hey, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Now, she said this when I started putting money into CDs and into banks, and she was like, hey, make sure that you put it in multiple banks, make sure you have multiple CDs, and whether you agree or disagree, I really personally like spreading out my money a little bit more rather than throwing, $1,000 into one stock and then seeing what happens. That's not something that I would really like to do. I mean, maybe I'm going to double, maybe I'm going to lose half, maybe I'm going to make more or lose more. I mean, it's one of those things that I really didn't like that he said, but she gave me some advice that really helped me in the more recent times that I decided, hey, now I have this stock that's doing really well, so let me just kind of invest in a bunch of other safer options, so then even if that stock drops, I'll still have money that is pretty much working for me. So that's kind of where my mentality in the stock market has gone. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit. What happened next was, this was through my college years, I started paying for rent. And this is when I got my first job, which I'm still at currently. This is when I started making some income, but I'm a personal trainer, so at the beginning, you make almost nothing. So I had a cheap apartment with some friends where I was paying only a third of the total rent, so I was saving a decent amount of money. Now, when I graduated and I got my apartment with my friends and I was making some money, I started to look at apartments for myself and really think about where I wanted to go next, because I knew that eventually I'd be making good money as a personal trainer if I stuck it out, so I could move into my own apartment, which has always been the main goal for me. I love my space. I love my, time and everything that I can do for myself. So I really decided that, hey, maybe this is the perfect time to do that. So my first year of my career, I'm living with friends. I'm not spending a lot of money on rent. I'm spending a lot of money on food because I hung out with my one friend and we would go out and get food all the time. And I was spending money on Amazon and not really worrying about my credit cards and putting some stuff on my debit card and all of that stuff. So even though I was not spending a ton, I also wasn't making a ton. So if I had made a budget then, I probably would have more money right now. I also didn't really have much in savings because I would put all my money towards food. I would put all my money towards, going out, and that pretty much made me live paycheck to paycheck, which a lot of people do. One of the things that really hurt me was that I put so much money on credit cards. Now, I'm not someone who spends a ton, But when you go, 2 years in and you're not really focused on how much you're spending and how much interest you're getting on your credit cards, it all adds up. No matter how much you're spending, even if it's, once a month you spend $50, that adds up. So that's something that really put me behind. And when I got to year 2 of my career, I started making some decent money. I got my own apartment, which doubled the rent that I was paying. I was paying my own bills, so electric, water, and I don't have cable, but I have internet and just everything along with that. I'm paying my own bills. So that started to cause some issues because I really wasn't, again, able to save. My money went up, my income went up, but my expenses also went up, and I started spending as much money as I was making now. So it really started to hurt me. One thing that I actually ended up doing, my car completely died, and there were some signs and I didn't really listen. I had a car that lasted for about, I believe 5 years, which is pretty good. And I was like, it's about time that I get a new one, and it's dead. If I was going to get it fixed up, it was going to cost probably about 3/4 of what I had initially spent. So I was like, there's no way that I'm going to pay that. And I made a decision that I don't regret. I got it out of my system at a young age, but I got a brand new car. So this was at the end of 2018. I got a 2019 Toyota Corolla, which Corollas have been in the family for a while. I'm a big fan. And it was one thing that for my entire life, I've wanted to buy my own car and have a brand new car. And that's something that I could finally do. So I did it. And, I still have to pay for the bills because I only put so much down, so I still have to pay off the car. So that was another thing that not only was it a big expense then, but now it's also still something that I have to constantly pay for. So another big thing, not a big deal to me. I don't mind paying it off over the long run. I got that brand new car out of the way. If I buy a new car, it's probably not going to be brand new next. But I'm not going to be, 30 and buying a brand new Mustang or Camaro or whatever it may be, because I know the financial impact and I have a better understanding of what I want to do. And buying a new car is not an expense that I really want to have. So I got that out of the way, and now we're entering year 3. Year 3 is 2020. If you're watching this in the future, don't look back at 2020. Just run. It has been the most bizarre, crazy year ever. I mean, at least in my lifetime, there's been so much that's going on. And for me, 2020 really started in January, which is very obvious. But for a lot of people, the negativity and the impact that had on them started more in March when, coronavirus started really ramping up, when, businesses were shutting down and all that stuff. But for me, it started in January, because January is when I decided, hey, I'm going to have a clean slate. I'm going to go on a vacation in March, but I'm going to save up for that. I'm going to start pushing money into savings. I'm going to kind of spend a little bit less and really focus on groceries rather than eating out. And as someone who's really, I see myself as relatively a minimalist when it comes to that kind of stuff. I still spend money, but I'm at the lower side. I really don't spend a ton of money. So I was like, hey, if I can save money, that's awesome. One day I want to buy a house. I want to have all of these things that I've wanted for a long time, not necessarily super expensive, but let me start putting money aside. Let me really start thinking about my financial well-being, especially since I'm starting to make some money and really do pretty well as a personal trainer. Now, as we got into the next couple months, things started to go crazy. And if you know what happened, I mean, it was just insane for everyone. I mean, it was months of just not going out. I really spent my time staying inside. I didn't really do too much. I just kind of hung out in my apartment, I had my groceries delivered, and that was about it. I didn't really have contact with the world. I streamed a lot. I, talked to my family on the phone or on Zoom, which really blew up. And I just really didn't do too much, which was perfect. I spent a lot of money on a computer, but I saved enough, so it was worth it, especially for that time, to put more time into streaming and playing video games. Twitch.tv/Dialex4, by the way. That's something that really, it was worth the investment, because one day I expect it to pay me back. And I am an affiliate on Twitch, so I am making money on Twitch, which is a great thing. So one day, maybe, a year down the line, 2 years down the line, hopefully I'm going to have that computer pretty much paid back. So something that really got to me at the end of quarantine was that, my one stock, that I had multiple stocks, but my one stock was doing really well. And I was like, you know what? I really want to have a bunch of stocks that play off like this, do really well, and I'm going to start throwing money into the stock market and bonds and ETFs, and just putting money into a bunch of different spots that is, the money's going to work for me. And it might go down, it might go up, but trying to really invest in a smart way. And I decided, hey, I'm going to start really watching YouTube videos. Graham Stephan has been someone who I've watched a ton of his videos in the past week, just because I've really enjoyed the minimalist lifestyle. I enjoy learning how to make money work for me, and to really not have to worry about the financial side of things. So learning how to save, learning how to invest smartly, the stock market, all of those kind of things. So a lot of that stuff he talks about, and that was something that really was just enjoyable for me to listen to and to watch. So his content is something that I've really found to enjoy. And so I started learning a lot about the stock market and stuff like that. So I really have, over the past year, learned to how to grow my portfolio. And, if you look at a graph of where I started to now, I started at a dip, and then it goes up pretty well. And now it's kind of going down and up, and we're seeing a little bit more volatility, but not too much. But it's been doing fairly well. So I wanted to learn how to kind of keep some really good investments, but also make some really smart investments. So that's what I started to do. I also put some money into Acorns because my brother-in-law actually recommended it, because his brother was invested in it and really enjoyed it. So started to really spread out my money over the past few months, if not year or so. And one of the biggest things that really helped me is creating a budget. Now, I'm not going to talk about how much money I make. I'm not going to talk about how much money I spend. But I've learned kind of the really important spots that I need to focus on. I have my rent. I have my credit card payments that I make. I have the food that I buy, how much money I spend on food. I have my expenses, which could be literally anything. It could be buying new shoes. It could be just, going out with friends and seeing a movie. It could be whatever it is, although you can't do that in quarantine, sadly. But that's something that I really thought about, because seeing how much I was investing and seeing how much my expenses were costing me and seeing how much income I was making, I could really see what the difference was, how much I really needed to make sure I was saving, because at some points in 2020 I've been in the negative, mostly because I've been putting more money towards credit cards, which has some way come out of my savings, but not too much. But then also I've been in the positive. So instead of putting money from savings, now my next goal is to always stay in the positive. Now that's not always going to happen. I mean, if I buy a house, obviously putting the money down is going to be more than my income that month. My camera stopped recording. Don't know why it stopped though. So I'm just going to pretty much say that I'm in no way an expert, but I really just want to put money into the right places that's going to help me out in the long term. I know I was talking about buying a house, which is something that's just I want to do in the long run, not something super expensive, but something that I want that I can live in for years and years. So I want to be able to invest in that. And I just want to have a really solid foundation for my future. So my whole mindset is now basically focusing on investing and saving, in cutting down on expenses, and just giving myself a better financial future. Doesn't mean that it is the best idea for everyone else. It's just something that I've been doing and something that I've kind of wanted to talk about just in case it can help someone else. For me, watching those videos that other people have done has really helped me. So I want to make sure that if I have content that is going to be helpful for someone else, that I can put it out there and help people really focus in on things that is going to make a difference for them. And, you know, I'm going to be talking about different things on here, whether it's Twitch streaming, personal training, financial stuff, whatever it may be, just topics that I want to talk about. You know, this channel is for other people to, you know, ask questions, for me to talk about topics that people want to listen to. So, you know, it might not be financial, my financial views. It might be something completely different. So feel free to reach out to D4 in Theory on Instagram or on Twitter, or even comment on the videos. I'm going to try to pretty much constantly check out if people have commented, just so then I can get back to as many people as possible. So feel free to leave a comment, send me something on Instagram or on Twitter. I'll try to get back to you. I'll try to do videos on topics that other people want to talk about. If I don't know much about the topic or about my personal interest in the topic, I might do some research, but feel free to. And, you know, just make sure you give this video a like if you enjoyed it, but it would really help the channel grow. I'm trying to make this channel, you know, become something more than just me. I want it to be something that, you know, people can come to when they have, you know, thoughts about doing something like changing their financial mindset, or thoughts about if they want to Twitch stream or make YouTube videos or become a personal trainer. I want to be able to make videos that's really going to help other people out. So feel free to hit that like button and the subscribe button if you want to see future videos. And I'll see you guys next time on D4 in Theory.